Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to this week's edition of Imperial as One's Belonging series, where we explore the lived experiences of individuals from the Black, Asian, and minority ethnic communities. Um, People who have been willing to share their experiences, tell us a bit about their journeys into finding their sense of identity and sense of belonging. And I do say this every week, and every week, as I've said before, I've been proven to be true. Is that we've got a very special guest, and our guest this week is Eiman Kanjo. Professor Eiman Kanjo is a professor of pervasive computing at Nottingham Trent University. She's the recipient of the Turing Network Development Award, and she's also a visiting provost visiting professor in pervasive sensing and tiny ML at Imperial College. We're going to go into what those things are in a minute, but I'd like to just say a big welcome, Iman, and thank you for being our guest. I'm going to start off with our usual question, which is, can you tell me what it was or what it is that gave you your sense of identity, your sense of belonging when you were growing up?
Okay, sure. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I'm pleased to be talking to you today. So, when you introduced me and you said Eimans professor, this still amazes me because that's what I wanted to be since I was a little child. I had this idea that academics are different or special kind of people that never make a mistake. And I don't know where I get this from until maybe the age of like 15, 16. I always thought like academics are very, very special, that they can do things that other people can't do. So this always has been in my mind that I want to be professor. I want to be perfect in a way that I seek knowledge. I can help others to or to transfer knowledge to others once I acquired that knowledge. I was very interested in the concept of perfection, being able to be good in school, but also in sports. I used to follow sports from all over the world. I was a Liverpool football fan at that time. I used to listen to the radio, for example, to keep up with tennis tournaments, Wimbledon, and things like that. So um, having many kind of hobbies. I used to buy books to learn how to do kung fu. The idea is that I have to have a healthy mind, a healthy body, to be able to make changes to the world, to be able to make the world better. But also I was brought up in a way by my family to appreciate education. And I being brought up with family being supportive, engaging. My father used to take me to football matches. He loved football. But I like the idea of that women don't need to have different interests from men. That's
Mhm,
my whole thought at that time. Like football is good for everybody. So education, so
mhm,
engineering,
mhm,
so cooking, so women can do everything that other men can do. And I was like even thinking about that in terms of my physical capabilities, always trying to do sport activities to be physically capable, but it wasn't
yeah.
always successful.
So
Yeah.
it sounds to me, based on what you've said, is that um, you had the freedom to explore who you wanted to be.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, my father, he really encouraged me. Being the youngest in my family, he really took me to many places.
Mhm,
And I used to, cling to him and say, like, take me. I like to explore. Like, for example, I remember when we had like some kind of house decoration, get the painters coming, I'll go and talk to them. And ask questions, which was unusual for a girl and have interest in painting.
mhm,
Um, I wanted to learn about electricity, how it works, or even I wanted to take courses in fixing things, which I always amaze my parents by coming up with few requests like, oh, I want to know this, I want to learn this, I want this course and that. and they found it hard to keep up with all of these.
So, I'm just wondering about your older siblings, because you said you were the youngest. Do you think your parents were just tired by then and they said, okay, we'll just let her do what she wants to do?
Sometimes it's the case, when you nag a lot, because I wake up in the morning with something. Oh, I want to do this. I see something on TV, or an astronaut. I want to be astronaut today. Like this is a great thing. Next day, I want to be firefighter, and then I will talk to my father. Go and take me and see how can I be firefighter. But then the day after, I have something else on mind. So I keep them busy, but I think they've been very patient.
So, what was it then? Clearly, from what you've said, you had this passion, this curiosity. You wanted to find things out. You wanted to, and as you said, you wanted to be a professor from a very young age. So, at school, how was it in your school journey? Clearly, I can see that you enjoyed school, but did you come across any obstacles? Did anyone say, "Oh, you shouldn't be doing that," or anything like that? How?
So yeah, I mean, at early stage, obviously, I mean, like every other school child, I love the school. I loved going every day. We wake up in the morning. Oh, it's another school day. I will be very excited. I didn't like holidays. I still don't like holidays. I do holidays by force to relax and so on. But for me, a working day is a new day. It's really fun. Like, oh, let's see what will happen. This is new morning, and let's see what will happen in that day. It's a new chance, new opportunities. It was like me, like this in schools. Like in schools, you meet people, you learn new things. But obviously, over the years, the people say things like I always dreamt of continuing my education. I was saying like I will go to London, I go to Cambridge and do my education. But I remember some of my friends would say, "Are you crazy? It's very expensive. They will not let you do a degree there. You are different or something like this. And why do you want to go to Cambridge? I mean, why don't you think of other universities? I mean, why you think about the top of all of them?" And I always thought, no, why not? I should be able to dream of going there, to go to London. I love my country a lot. I mean, I'm brought up in Syria. I love my city, Aleppo, which is in north of Syria, so much. And I used to talk to my friends about how much we love our country. I will never leave. But at the same time, I wanted to study, explore the world, and the most important out of all of this is that I want to show that I can go
Mhm,
and I can, study
mhm,
or work, at some of these top universities.
mhm. So, so when it came to then, clearly you had big aspirations. One from age 4, you wanted to be a professor, you wanted to go to Cambridge, so you had big aspirations. Was it always about the sciences, or what were it sounds to me that you enjoyed everything.
Yeah, I mean, like for example, in Syria, everybody wants to be a doctor. So if you ask a child, what do you want to be? You say, oh, I want to be a doctor. And you'll get in trouble with your parents if you say something else. You have to be a doctor. I've never said that. I've never said I will be a doctor. So I always looked at areas nobody else mentioning. Like, I don't know, I want to do something with fixing, I don't know, things or maintenance or
Mhm,
engineering related. And then when I learned about computing, quantum computing, I was very interested, but the quantum physics, I mean, quantum computing wasn't much in the radar, but quantum physics was something that I heard about a lot at that time. Computing started to come, in the view. So I started to get interest in what can I do with computers? Can I learn programming and so on? So even at school, I started to learn how to program. And my father, at that time, he bought me new computers, very, very expensive, maybe 10 times the price of current computers, at that
mhm,
time. So he encouraged me to explore, maybe after so much nagging. After that, I felt like that's what I want to do. I really love computing, problem solving. I just felt like I'm good at programming when I started to
mhm,
program my first app or something like this. So I felt like this is so cool. I want to be someone who could carry on in this area. And then I started to hear that there are university degrees. We had two kind of routes. One through informatics. and one through engineering. So I chose the engineering, computer engineering
Hmm.
at that time.
And when you went to university, is that what you studied? Computer engineering,
Yeah, so it was 5 years degree.
a
Uh,
5 year
you had,
degree.
yeah, so you had to be really competitive. I mean, in Syria, so you really, I mean, if you want to do medicine
Hmm.
or engineering, especially computer science, you have almost to score 220 or 240.
Wow.
For medicine, 235, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, to get into engineering, it's very, very competitive,
Yeah.
these kinds of subjects. So everybody wants to be doctor or engineering. So yeah, I studied, and then of course I had to go through the selection process, and luckily, yeah, when I got into the engineering, I was very, very excited.
So tell me, I'm just curious because it's such uh, um, rigorous and demanding selection process. Were people telling you because you're a woman you can't do this? Did you ever experience that, or were you encouraged to um, go ahead? You can be. How was it for you?
So in Syria, people perceive computing as a subject for everybody.
Right.
We were like at the university level, we were like 50% of the students were from a female and male. So 50% of them women, and
Mhm.
50% male. So for me, it wasn't even a question. I've never thought about the ideas that
Mhm.
engineers are for women or not. The only thing I would say at that time, my mother wasn't sure if I'm making the right decision because in Syria education is free,
Mhm.
right? But there is a condition if you do a engineering degree, you have to serve in public bodies for 3-4 years,
Mhm.
and this could be anywhere.
Mhm.
So her concern was, what if you have been sent to rural village, and nobody around you, something like that, So
Mhm.
it was like, why do you take long way? Why don't you go and do medicine? Why don't you become a doctor? So it took us to, before I enrolled in that course, and even until the second year, she still keep telling me, why don't you change, transfer to medicine? Until she then accepted after I received the top student award after first year, and
Mhm.
I received a very good prize. Then she felt, oh, actually, that's a rewarding degree. She started to praise the fact that I'm studying engineering at that time as opposed to medicine.
So you won your mother around by just showing,
I bought her something as well.
okay. I like your style. That's a good one. So in terms of then, so you clearly enjoying your degree, clearly doing very well in your degree, and you still had those aspirations that this wasn't the end. I need more. I needed more.
Yeah,
So,
I can tell you. Yeah, yeah. I mean, until now,
mhm.
nothing is enough. I, I think I have some kind of a condition that is not diagnosed yet. But seriously, I mean, I've talked to some of my friends who are specialists in brain studies and so on, and I feel like I have some kind of excess energy that is not necessarily that everybody has,
Mhm.
which means the world around me is very slow. So
Right.
you see what I mean? So like I always want to move and do things,
Mhm.
but the world around me is very slow. So
Mhm.
I've never thought about it as I grew up. Like I just wanted to do things, but as
Mhm.
I got older, I started to realize this that there must be something about how I think.
Mhm.
Because not everybody has the same energy, and I started to realize actually it might be me, like thinking different way. Maybe I'm different, and I started actually to think like I need to give people space because they don't need to be at the same speed as me. So I started to consider that. Before I used to get frustrated, like, oh, why everybody is slow? Like we could have done this in one day, and everybody takes like days to do it, and so on. So at some point, I start to realize actually not everybody enjoys something. So I need to start, to slow for people, or at least do, pace what I'm doing.
Hmm.
And the way that I control the energy these days is with physical activities, because sometimes I have so much energy. I want to do this and that, and and then the world around us sometimes is slow. There's so much bureaucracy and things like that. So I try to do physical activities, sport, intensive ones,
Hmm.
because that helps me to divert my energy instead of diverting it towards people.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Absolutely. I totally understand that. So you've got more energy than, it's really interesting that you talk about quantum physics, right? And the whole idea of the quantum being about power source and whatever else, and it's
Yeah.
it's it's kind of like it was built for you because you've got all of this power that you want to just release.
Yeah, yeah. As I said, I mean, sometimes, unfortunately, we don't try to understand how our brain works, like individually. We think there are things that we can do better or less, or because we are different. But it turns out sometimes if we understand how our brains work, we can customize it and make it work for us. Like for example, I don't have very good memory.
Hmm.
And this frustrates me at some point. Like I memorize things and I can't, retrieve knowledge as fast as other people. So let's say I'm average in that sense. But I started to work it out maybe because of the way my brain, because of the energy, because there's a lot of energy diverted towards maybe problem solving. Maybe that's why it takes over from memory. So
Hmm.
when we start to understand how our brain works, we start to capitalize on what we are good at rather than
Hmm.
feeling bad about what we're not good at.
I like that analogy. I really do like that analogy. Um, and I suppose that really does help you in the field of computing, in that you've got those ways of partitioning knowledge and putting apps on top of this, and then and so all of those things then link together. If I'm.
Yeah, and that's why I've never chosen medicine or other
Mhm,
subject that require memorizing or
mhm,
calling words and things like that, because with computing you need your brain, you need
mhm,
to think about logic. Logic is
mhm,
very important, and you need to get your brain in a state where it can link things together. And
mhm,
I think again I need to someone to look at how my brain works, but there's something that about linking different things together. Like I talk to people and then they tell me about this possibility, and then other group of people tell me about this and that, and then something happen and I see a link between all of these possibilities, and then
mhm,
I have this idea, like why don't we do this? And
mhm,
that's where my strength is, not necessarily that like I can do much faster than others,
mhm,
or memory side, but it's just the linking between different ideas, bringing another new idea out
mhm,
of all of those, seeing possibilities. That's
mhm.
something I feel like what my brain likes to do.
I love that. I love that. So kind of like problem solving is your forte. That's what you enjoy doing. It's bringing different strands together and then coming up with solutions.
Yeah, and maybe in the long term, not necessarily in 1 minute. So if you ask me a few questions and we solve it, I might not be the best.
Yeah, yeah.
But I have the space where my brain starts to consume this information. So let's say we
Hmm.
met now,
Hmm.
and I had another few meetings. At the end of the day, I started to think, oh, we can do this, we can do that. Maybe we can
Hmm.
put these two together.
Hmm.
There are possibilities here and there.
Hmm.
And that sometimes started to exhaust me because I could see like 4 or 5 possibilities and I want to do them now.
Yeah.
you know, and my husband tells me, write them down. Like just write them down and it's okay. You don't need to do them.
You can come back to one later on.
But next day I have other ideas. But yeah, I started to write them down and narrow down the thing. I even
Hmm.
enjoyed kind of possibilities. But yeah,
Hmm. I'm
there's always like something comes out of this conversation, like, oh, we can do that, we can do this.
Mhm. I'm going to just ask you a little bit. Can you just explain to us a bit about what pervasive computing actually is? Because
Yeah, I can tell you. So the idea is that um I told you before, I don't mind being different and doing things
Mhm,
differently. So
mhm,
as I grew up, I like the idea of doing things in non-conventional way. Like, for example, instead of doing computing on traditional computers, we take the lab outside. So the world is my lab, where
mhm,
we embed technology in every possible place. Like, for example, we have devices embedded in parks, hospitals, in city centers. We work with like Met Police, we work with healthcare organizations, we work on the environmental monitoring. So we build these kind of devices, whether it's wearable or devices that are embedded in furniture. And the current thinking in terms of pervasive computing is that we go beyond sensors and the devices that can capture data, but we could also process the data on that device. So this concept of tiny ML, tiny machine learning,
mhm,
where you can process the data locally. So say, for example, you have your wearable, you don't need to share the data with anyone. In fact, you could do AI on that device, so you don't need to communicate with the server, which could preserve privacy and also the utilization of low energy. And
mhm,
that takes us into the opposite direction of what most of the current computing companies, like, for example, OpenAI,
mhm.
and where they are taking the world, by storm. We don't want people to rely on 4 or 5 companies in terms of the processing power.
Mhm,
The idea is that AI computing can be for everyone, cheap devices that can be embedded in farms, rural
mhm.
areas, developing countries, without relying on internet or big data centers. So that's what pervasive computing is.
Wow. So it's you call it pervasive, but it's kind of like a more integrative integrated way of utilizing computing power.
I mean, the earlier concept of it was called disappearing computing. And the idea of it is that you have computing heading in the background. Like I said, for example, you have this platform called Tag with Me, which is embedded in a park north of Nottingham near Sherwood Forest. And you could play a game. There are devices embedded around which can do proximity detection, but you don't see them. And you could interact with them by looking at your mobile every now and then, but not all the time, to encourage people to walk and be physically active and
Hmm.
enjoy their local environment, the
Hmm.
visitor economy, social
Hmm.
prescribing, and these kind of things.
Hmm.
But the idea is that computing is there, empowering the space, the people, but
Hmm.
it's not visible.
Hmm. So yeah, I love it. I do love that idea, is that it's not taking up, it is taking up space, but it's not visible space that is then distracting you from what you can actually achieve with it, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Like, for example, everybody now is mad about technologies that trying to attract them to use their phone more, the
Hmm.
screens. But what we say is that we try to develop technology actually now to engage people with this, the concept called green social prescribing. And there are social
Hmm.
prescribers that try to support people to be physically active. Like, for example,
Hmm.
for people who don't have immediate clinical needs, but they still need some kind of mental health support
Hmm.
with other non-clinical issues. They get support from social prescribers. So we support the
Hmm.
social prescribers by saying that we have the technology to allow people to go and be within green environments,
Hmm.
engage with it, but they still have this kind of technology helping them to and persuading them to walk more
Yeah.
and act.
Hmm.
So, and also it appeals to young people as well.
Hmm.
Some young people don't like to go, out or to leave their computers.
Hmm.
What we embed the technology somewhere where they can still interact with each others, but without staring at the screen all the time.
Hmm. I really I like that idea. It's the first time I've really come across it in terms of being explained in that way, but it's a really beautiful idea. Um, so I'm very interested in your in your current studies, what you're doing and how you're doing them, and not necessarily what barriers that you face, but I'm still just thinking about, yeah, what are the things which have propelled you to where you are, and what things have you had to overcome in order to be where you are now?
So I mean, in terms of the studies themselves, I'm very interested in terms of working with communities,
Hmm.
and try to solve problems and
Hmm.
supporting them in terms of solving problems with technology.
Hmm.
Um, when I mentioned pervasive computing and the idea of embedded intelligence, this appeals to many community groups. Like, and I mentioned before the social prescribing community, for example,
Hmm.
who are really keen in terms of finding solutions. I get many open parks
Hmm.
contacting me all the time saying that you have a solution for us. I work with zoos, botanic gardens, adventure centers, for
Hmm.
example. So they are very keen in terms of attracting people to come and visit their spaces. I
Hmm.
work with the Met Police in terms of crime prevention, for
Hmm.
example,
Hmm.
finding solutions for supporting vulnerable people and accessing safety information and things like that. And it requires technologies to be embedded in these communities. It's not just about attending one meeting and talking about this problem and disappearing, but also it's this like one-to-one relationship, being embedded and understanding the requirements and the challenges, and then coming up with these kind of solutions. And I think this is quite challenging because as academics, we aspire to progress in terms of our fields, we compete with our peers in terms of writing papers and funding applications and so on. But at the same time, you have these communities that require support. And I could see some challenges that we could solve with technologies, with research, but it requires a lot of my time.
Yeah.
So sometimes you go, like for example, in the last few months, I was concentrating more on my research.
Hmm.
The 6 months before, I was doing more with the community. So I sometimes I have to go back and do the things that I need to do in terms of my work. But then you get this kind of guilt. You feel the guilt towards these communities where I want to support them. I want to utilize technology to help them to support their users or their the vulnerable people that they work with.
Yeah. Fantastic. So, and then you said in Syria, that it was like 50-50 males to females in your cohort, in your classes and stuff like that. What's been your experience here in the UK? When was it that you came to the UK as well? And what did you pursue when you came here?
I came 100 years ago. In a while. I came first to Scotland. I was still young and started my family very early on. So my first experience was in Scotland and started to learn the Scottish accent at that time. Um, and it was particularly in Dundee. I really enjoyed living there.
Mhm.
Obviously, I mean, I think I was the only PhD student in my university, a female PhD student at that time. Um, and when I started teaching, I started to come to my mind that actually it's different environment than Syria. That here, not many female students in computing. I remember I was. I mean, my PhD was in computer games, and I was teaching computer games courses, which are very technical. So I remember some courses that we don't have any female students at some point.
Mhm.
Um, so people started to talk to me and say, how come you're doing this? How come you are a woman and you're active in this area? And I started to realize actually, oh, it's not what we are used to in Syria, that computing is for
Mhm.
everyone. Everybody can, enroll and study. Then I started to realize that I come to different world, different culture where, people do different
Mhm.
things. And I still, to be honest, until this moment, I don't understand why there are not many women in computing. I'm still trying to understand Because for me, it's never the case that the women can't do computing for this reason or that. I still don't understand why.
That's really interesting. That's so interesting, because the public perception over in the UK would be that we're much more progressive, inverted commas, yeah. But
Yeah, yeah.
what you've highlighted to me is that when you were in Syria, it was much more progressive in terms of there was no in terms of intellectual and educational, both were deemed, both male and females could access and go on and work.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I'm brought up, maybe my area, but that's what my understanding that in Syria, the education is very important. You have to
Mhm,
have the basic degree, or at least
mhm,
my community. Obviously, there are some rural areas, some
mhm,
parts of the country that I might not have had interaction with. But in general, let's say in the main cities, like the concept that like you can't get on with your life without education. For me, as I grew up, like my mother would be, or my family will not be happy if I don't do university degree. But obviously, we haven't thought about, uh, life without university degree. So
mhm,
education is a must. And as I mentioned before, in like many other surrounding countries, also in the East, where they see medicine as the best
mhm,
possible choice, because in terms of income, it's proportional to income as well. So
mhm,
medicine can give you a stable income, and I think it's
mhm,
all about financial security. At the end of the day, people need to make sure that they have a career, because
mhm.
we don't have the same concept here of that if you don't work, that you will be supported in some way.
Yeah.
So yeah, education is very important.
Mhm,
And the other thing that I've noticed, and I started to learn about that, I mean, I have taught some students and supervised some students who are the first in their family to go to university here in the UK.
yeah.
And I was shocked when I learned about that, because I thought, oh, here in the UK, there are people who don't consider university as a route, for example. For
Mhm,
me, it was the case where everybody has to go to university. I thought, like, if you come to the UK, you'll find everybody with a university degree, or at least, studying at a higher level.
mhm,
So yeah, I think when you move to different countries, you start to learn about the differences, in terms of in terms of education and how people perceive education,
mhm,
but I think it's all also related to financial security as well, where people choose universities as a stable, straightforward way to have job,
mhm,
be able to be financially stable.
mm. Now you raised some really interesting points there. So in terms of you spoke about the accessibility and the almost like the mindset or the aspirations, saying that your aspirations, it was kind of like never did you not imagine going to a university, etc. Whereas some of the individuals who you've taught, they're first in family to be going to university. There are those social implications that go along with that. But I just wonder to myself, um, how have you then approached, or how do you try to encourage? In what ways have you supported the community to help to try to make a difference?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a very good question, because that's what I've been doing for the last few years, which
Mhm,
again started to have some impact on my research. So that's why I posed some of the activities. So over the past few years, I've been working very closely with like what I said, communities.
mhm,
Initiated a new type of collaboration or network called AI for East Midlands, because through discussions with various groups, local authorities, is that, for example, in East Midlands, we don't have many AI businesses around. We
mhm,
have some SMEs, and they very often they come to me and say, "Can you support us with this and that?" from mobile application development to AI algorithms to, for example, we work on multiple projects in supporting Nottingham City Council on setting up smart city architectures and things like that. But we don't have enough industry. We don't have enough talents who know how to do AI and smart technology and things like that. So together with many universities around the East Midland, we start to think, why don't we come together and initiate this and start to bring together funding bodies, industries, networking organizations, local communities, whether it's from healthcare, whether it's from security, whether it's from other domains, to come and talk to us. So we had many meetings, started from my university, where we invited many people and started to ask the questions: what are the immediate challenges that we have in the region? But we can't solve everything at the same time. And we started to think, okay, what are the immediate problems? And then we had a few meetings, and then we came to the conclusions. One of the most important areas that people want some solutions in is called social prescribing, where they want some support in terms of healthcare. We've been working with GP alliances here in Nottingham. They work with network of like 70, 80 GPs. They can't support patients enough. They get thousands of referrals every week, and they only support a few hundreds, let's say. So, and they don't have good access to information technology. Their workload is very intense and so on. So through these conversations, we teamed up with them and started to work on funding applications, and we put big funding applications together, guided by these end user organizations. So that's one example of what we started to work on, but there are many other strands of work that we are trying to work on to support these kind of communities. But like what I said, it's really not the easiest thing to do in the world, because we as academics, we work in a specific way where we are required to have the specific type of output, but working with the community requires time and passion and understanding the problems they face, simplifications of the technologies that we could support them with, and also seeking funding and all sorts of things. So I also started to work with the governmental bodies. We started to talk to NHS health and personalization, to see if they can support us in a way that we integrate technology in a better way. But again, it's ongoing kind of a struggle where is the money, is who's going to be supported, what is the role of academia, how can we support them this way or other. But it was like a mind opening to understand what's happening with the community.
So you've been actively working in partnership, in collaboration, to help other people get that sense of identity and belonging, through technology in that case. I think that's absolutely brilliant. I'm just going to see if anybody in the audience has any questions which they'd like. If not, I've got a few more questions so just raise your hands if you do have any questions. I'm going to continue on then and say, what was it that then, because you're here at Imperial, what was it that led you to kind of like want to come to Imperial College and work here with us?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned before, like when I do my research or work over the years, and sometimes I find other things slow, So I felt like if I come in here, maybe I can do things with at speed.
Yeah.
So I still have the same agenda, the same kind of ideas, let's say, and research. So this is not changing. But what might change is that learning from, there are great people here at Imperial. So they're doing great things. It's one of the top universities. So I really wanted to come and learn. I would say learn as much as possible from people, and this learning would inform my research. and also to see if I'm doing the right things, for
Mhm.
example, and compare. And yeah, I would say learning is on my mind. But I heard about Imperial a lot in the last few years that intrigued me to see to come and see what are people doing differently that giving them that name and
Yeah,
reputation.
yeah, fantastic. That's brilliant. So I'm gonna my final couple questions, I suppose. Um, three more questions, and that's it. At the start, I asked you about what it was that gave you your sense of identity and belonging. And I'm going to ask you, in all of the different roles and the different aspects, different places, do you think what has it been that has helped you to find your sense of belonging?
Um, I think I love education. I would
Mhm,
say I love to be active as active learner, and seeking knowledge, but also finding resources that to support what I want to do, and on top of that, resilience.
mhm,
So the combination of the love to do things, and sometimes you can't do what you want to do because of the challenges, because try to do something and people don't let you do what you want all the time.
mhm,
So when you face challenges, I mean, I have this kind of resilience where, like everybody else, I might pause for a second and feel sorry, but then come back with a bigger plan. So for me, that's what makes, at least, what helped me to continue and carry on despite the huge number of challenges,
mhm,
is that I don't take very long time in terms of feeling sorry for myself.
mhm,
So I give some time to think and come up with new strategies. And the other thing, I mean, I like to renew myself every now and
mhm,
then. So I'm not afraid of restructuring the whole thing that I'm working on. Like, so having, like, taking a U-turn
mhm,
and going back to other areas. So renewing myself is something that I like to do every now and then, learning
mhm,
from mistakes, and other people's experiences. Since we talk to too many people, have a wide range of collaborations, I learned from that and try
mhm.
to prepare myself to come up with new ideas, new plans.
It sounds to me like you're very I liked how you kind of like put it that you reflect on what's happened, but you don't necessarily dwell on what's happened,
No.
because you're too fast to let something slow you down by dwelling on something which happened in the past.
I mean, to be honest, maybe something to do with my circumstances. I can't afford to
Mhm,
be to not work hard or to slow down, because I mean, at
mhm,
the end of the day, as I said, I'm coming back from Syria. I have
mhm,
many people that I'm supporting at the moment. I mean,
mhm,
I have my
mhm,
family there. Um, and I think it helps in a way that when you compare your challenges with other people who are facing real difficulties, I mean,
mhm,
can't help but feel like, oh, do I really need to feel sorry for myself because of this and that?
mhm,
I still have my
mhm,
salary, still have
mhm,
my family, I still have this
mhm,
and that. So you feel ashamed,
mhm,
to feel sorry for yourself, and
mhm,
I don't know, get upset about things. I mean, I call them trivial things, because
mhm,
compared to what other people are facing in the world,
mhm,
especially,
mhm,
my family and relatives and people that I know, you really don't afford to slow down, because you need to carry on. You need to keep on to support the people you love, and the unfortunate people that sometimes struggle even to eat or
mhm,
to stay alive.
mhm,
So for me, that helps me a lot in having purpose, but also to see the other side of the story,
mhm,
carry on. Maybe responsibility. Put it this way, when you have
mhm, mhm.
responsibility helps you to keep going.
Yeah. No, that's a beautiful answer. It's a beautiful answer. That perspective, that
Yeah.
perspective, keeping everything in perspective. I really like that. All right, I'm going to ask you my final two questions, right? And the first, it's a two-header. The first part of the question is, can you tell me um, what advice you'd have given to your younger self? And then the second part of that question is, what do you think your younger self would look at you now and say, wow?
Okay, so if I talk to myself, my younger self, I would say, oh, it turned out the life, the world stays the same, doesn't change. And nobody can change the world no matter how much you try. So don't worry too much about changing the world. Change as much as you can,
Mhm,
do as much as you can, but nobody can change the world because the world is beautiful as it is.
mhm,
Uh,
mhm,
and the things happen for a reason. So
mhm,
don't try to change the world. It will not, no one can change it. But and also the world stays the same, with the
mhm,
challenge, with the ups and downs. And I would tell myself to carry on,
mhm,
doing things, because if you work hard, you will be rewarded despite the challenges. There are periods of my life where I was challenged a lot, that you feel, going, am I going to make it? Am I going
mhm,
to be able to carry on and do this and that? But then it turns out, yes, hard work always works. And I've seen it, when you
mhm,
are persistent and keep pushing, knocking all the doors, even breaking these locked doors, it does work.
mhm.
The second part of, sorry, that's like what
What would your younger self look at you now and say, wow?
uh, my younger self might not be very impressed. Because I mean, as I said, I had this idea that I have to achieve a lot. I had to change the world. I have to do so many things, and then as you grow up, you realize that there are so many things that you can't do. It's not just up to you as an individual. So I don't think my younger self will accept that I'm just a normal person doing normal things. The idea that you are normal is I should be Superman or something.
It's all relative. I understand. I understand. I think your younger self would have said, "Wow, you're a professor. You made it." I think that might be one thing that they would say.
Knowing myself, I would not be impressed.
Well, you know what, Iman, I'd like to just say a really big, big thank you for being our guest this week on Belonging. It's been a really interesting, riveting conversation that we've had, and we're here together. Let's work together and have some more conversations about what we can do to get that social perspective and see how we can it's not done yet. We've still got a long time to make some changes which will be impactful in this world.
We just started. Just
Yeah,
started.
we've just started. That's right. We've just started. We're still learning.
We
All
still
right.
can change the world, though.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. That's really,
That's
really, I enjoyed the discussion, and thank you very, very much for inviting me.
fantastic.
And
Thank you.
have a nice weekend.
Wait, just before you
Oh,
go, I'm just gonna
okay.
share with everyone what's coming up next time on Belonging. Um so this week we had Iman. Next week we're gonna have Winston True, and he's an author, lecturer, a civil rights campaigner. He was a member of the Oval Four who were wrongly convicted, and he spent 47 years working to get that conviction overturned. And so he'll be coming next week to give insight into the challenge and how he overcame those challenges. So please come and join us next week for that. If you have missed any of the other Belonging series, then please go to our YouTube channel, which is tinyurl.com/belonging IAO, and you'll be able to see all of the other videos and the other interviews that we have done. Um, then all I've got to say is a big thank you for all of those people who have shared their stories, who've given us an insight into what it means to belong, our different race, gender, sexualities, but what is it that helps us to find our sense of belonging? So until next week, please continue to help somebody feel as they belong. So thank you, and I will see you again next week.
Thank you very much. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.